When it comes to proving others wrong in Brawlhalla, Use is the perfect example. He's the second best player in South America, which means pretty much nothing. Now wait, don't get mad at me. On this day, Use is having a really good tournament run, but like that Discord message stated, a lot of players are unaware of just how good he may be. And that might be a little bit surprising because isn't he supposed to be the second best player in all of South America? Well, one thing Use has in common with every player from South America and every player not from North America is they have never won an official Brawlhalla in-person event, specifically in the traditional singles fighting game mode. It's more than likely Luna will win this match, making his record for the day 3 wins and 1 loss, tying him with multiple competitors headed to the top 4, a pretty normal situation at a tournament. But if Use wins, which is kind of like if Tai Lung lost to Crane, the very unlikelihood of that happening would cause the bracket to crumble in on itself, putting Luna in a really tight situation, and it would guarantee Use a spot in the top 4. Although these players have never played against each other, not a single commentator at the desk predicted Use to win.
As well, I just love the where he places his hitbox, almost gets a stop. Finds him with the Sayer afterward.
There's the pickup, there's the Sayer and Use!
I've noticed, especially in fighting games, one of the more unique developments is when players are separated by servers or different regions. They develop in really unusual ways. And Use isn't just developed differently, if you couldn't tell from the image on the screen. He's actually a pretty unique player on his own, in addition to being from a different region as well. And it catches a lot of people off guard, which is especially helpful for his next opponent. Godly would be the next opponent for Use in the top 3 of this tournament. Now, Godly is the best player in all of Europe. He's not second to anyone in that region, and that's been proven over and over again. A pick like Vector wouldn't be too surprising for him, because one of Godly's unique characteristics is he plays a lot of different legends, mainly Gauntlet legends. Even in the day before this tournament, they asked him, what are you going to play? And he just listed out 2 or so different weapons and 4 or so different characters that he's going to pick from.
Name every legend at that point, right? Like, I mean, you name every weapon, like.
That's supposed to be talking right now, bro.
For reference to that clip, people can usually only play 1 or maybe 2 legends at a really high level. Godly would have to find the perfect legend pick that handles Use's Vector, but also the nice thing about Vector is the adaptations are really simple. The driving force and iconic part of Lance is if you get 1 correct read, you can take them from one side of the map all the way to the end screen side of the map in a pretty swift little motion. It's a lot rare at these high level games that you'll actually see someone get 0 to death by Lance, but we did see it happen to Luna earlier, and Use almost gets away with it in the first game, but Godly is a little bit more aware. And I'm aware how weird it must seem to everyone else that I sit in my room all day talking about this stuff, but subscribing and liking this video makes it seem a lot less weird, so if you could do that, that'd be great. Now, I like Godly, can't really say he likes me, but in the first match, Godly single-handedly is tormented by 1 move. To be fair, that move is a spinning wheel of fire. It's not the easiest to deal with. This, combined with the mental torture that is dealing with Use in the off stage, I mean, literally, Use would rather get to the very last second where he could die before coming back on stage to fight you sometimes. Essentially, some people like to call this being passive, and Use is on the more passive fighting side, but he plays a very fundamentally safe game, which for the person facing you, in this case Godly, a very boring robotic-like game, because robots, like Vector, get it, don't take risk, which is a bit odd because Lance in itself doesn't have many setups for a true knockout. You have to catch somebody off guard, or whether they mess up their movement, and then you can get a knockout, but Use will just wear you down until eventually you're so low they can kill you with an end light. A combination of these wearing down factors makes Godly lose the first game, and then this is where things get hard, because usually when he swaps a new character, you expect something to change, but it doesn't. And then when he swaps again, it doesn't work another time. And then you realize Use just 3-0'd Godly, the best player in Europe. Also the person I predicted to win, so I lost all my channel points. Okay, unfortunately in fighting games, the final 4 of a bracket can be quite predictable. Use beats Godly, the player most people expected to win, knocking Godly into losers, where he could most definitely beat everyone in the losers bracket, and what do you know, he's back in grand finals. They're not very hard to predict, it kind of happens a lot. lot, but Godly in the grand finals versus Use is something Brawlhalla has never seen before. Either Europe or South America is winning their first in-person Royale. And now, as we're watching this, Use is still currently undefeated for the day using Vector. And if you were wondering, was Vector to surprise everyone because he's a little bit of an underrated character, maybe confuse them with his signatures, whatever it may be, I decided to ask Use to see what the idea behind Vector was.
Bro, I'm going to lose. I'm going to pick the most fun legend for me. So, like, the most fun legend for me is Vector. So I just pick it, Vector, and did my best.
That is not what I thought he was gonna say. You know, I put a lot of faith in these guys to know what they're doing, but I come to the conclusion none of them know what they're doing. Maybe Godly does. He knows he's losing, fortunately. So how is it possible Use is currently winning in grand finals after not being predicted by most of us to win? To be honest, I'm not really sure. The way he plays seems to be as if it was completely unique from the other fighters, using only what he thinks is best and taking his time, which is two things that are kind of rare in fighting games. And as for the Vector pick, players can find comfort in meta picks, but there's even more comfort in using a pick they believe is strongest, because that's all that really matters, is the belief that you can win with that character. And trying to see Use in a competitive light can be a bit harder, especially after hearing how he picked his legend for this tournament, but after beating Godly in winners finals and now facing him in grand finals, I think he was ready to put everyone who didn't predict them in their place. Winning the Royale is amazing, but I want you to listen closely. Something very unique is said here.
It's over! South America is getting a trophy!
The casters say South America has won a trophy, a little bit different than when North America wins. They usually just say their name. And while it is true, this has never been done before, Use at the next open LAN in Dallas, Texas is hoping to prove even more why not only is it possible for South America to win trophies, but there's a reason they're considered a major region outside of just their size. In Dallas is the next hill Use needs to conquer. It's an open LAN tournament. Winning one of these is the second highest achievement for Brawlhalla besides one other. By winning a LAN that anyone could attend, not only do we hope for another South American trophy, which would be nice, but to convince those who watch Brawlhalla that this will from now on be a regular thing and not just some random occurrence. South America's legacy so far in Brawlhalla has kind of been like the Gara versus Rock Lee fight. Even though Rock Lee loses, most people remember the weights coming off rather than if he wins or not. South America has had many impressive placements and memorable moments, but they're not actually remembered for winning anything. While winning the Royale is an impressive feat, it's kind of like trying to impress your parents. It'll never be enough. It doesn't gain the respect like a regular LAN. The key difference being anyone can join, and you can get matches where even though Use is only fighting to be in the top 32 of his bracket right now, he's against North America's 2021 BCX World Champion, Cody Travis. Quite literally one of the most terrifying people to face at a Brawlhalla LAN because of one infamous clip of him flipping off his opponent after beating him. Usually I avoid mentioning it because I'm gonna get some DMs telling me I shouldn't have talked about this, but I just want you to know that I risk a lot out here. Despite Use winning a Royale that his opponent was not even close to qualifying for, he does lose the first round to Cody Travis. Not only is this like one of the worst things that could happen, it shows maybe the Royale was kind of a fluke and Use is potentially not as good as everyone thought. Or that's how you could think if you had a really, negative mind about it. But one stat about these players that isn't really measured is their confidence. How well can you deal with a really tough loss like this? Not only would Use handle this loss and obliterate Cody Travis in the next game, he'd do it 2 more times, beating him 3-1. And after that first one, it's like, who's gonna stop him? He's like Anakin. After he took down one good guy, who's gonna stop him? Definitely not those kids, I'll tell you that. Next, he'd go on to beat AnimeFan1266, and don't get confused by that name. The guy's an absolute demon at playing Brawlhalla. He'd even beat his fellow South American competitor Lores, who had previously outplaced him earlier that year at San Diego. Although things seem to be going smoothly, his next opponent is Boomy, and don't let that PR number 9 fool you. Godly was supposed to be the next opponent for Use, but Boomy would end up knocking him out the day before. And you know, this is where making these videos is difficult for me. I practically grew up watching Boomy, if growing up was the ages 19 to 22. He's an incredibly smart player, and he's someone that's always utilized new characters, Thea being the newest character at the time of release for this tournament. Boomy is using Thea, a character with two very defining characteristics, one being the fact that she's the fastest legend in Brawlhalla, the most amount of movement speed, and she has some ridiculously quick signatures that are hard to punish. It's not mentioned a whole bunch, but the ability to pick up new legends fast is an incredibly useful skill because no one knows how to deal with them. Use is already someone we know that struggles when facing very confident players at times, and he's facing Boomy. I mean, look at him, he's like a feral animal on Thea. It would be terrifying to face him. Boomy is definitely a hard checkup match to run into at any LAN tournament for even the top pro players, but as hard as it is to say this, if Use wins this match against Boomy, the next two players he has to face are much, much more difficult.
Scampia has barely found an answer, but finally gets a reverse ground pound, and he's going to be able to GC neutral to get back. And really killing it on these rocket boots. Oh, it's tipped in. Oh, kind of a repeat from our first set, right? We saw the first person. Not KOing up top at all. It's like universal benefit. Let's see who works out for Boomy. Boomy tries to fly again. There we go. Really letting it rip, and then when he realized that he was in a tough position, down back a little bit. Really make him count that much more. Yeah, it's been awesome for a long point. Time to be careful with that outside down, maybe. But there's something you look at for Boomy's defenses right now. Honestly, when he's gone, that would be sending you right to the elimination side of bracket, and there we go. We get the D6 closing that out.
Arguably, the greatest ever played Brawlhalla by a single player for the time could be Impala. His story I've said countless times, but I still find it pretty fascinating because at his first LAN tournament he would take home 50 grand and not lose a single set. I've never seen someone so dominant compared to the other players he faced. This performance, as well as winning the LAN this year in the beginning after losing all the online majors, earns him the title of a LANimal, someone who excels their gameplay to a high degree with the added in-person tension surrounding them. Unfortunately for Impala, he would be actually a part of his own downfall in this match. You remember how I just pretty much glazed him for 30 seconds about being an incredible player when it comes to in-person events? Well, I mean, it was really inspiring to other players, especially Lorez, a now Kaya main out of South America. Lorez is someone that Use frequently goes against and commonly beats on Kaya. I think they even run the same cosmetic loadout. At the end of the year in 2022, a lot of professional players were starting to come together to realize Kaya was an outstandingly good character with high movement speed, lots of defense, and good signatures for knocking out. Now, obviously, just because Use has a lot of practice against someone that uses the same character, that isn't the only reason for him winning, but I mean, how unlucky is that? Use is gonna win this set 3-1 moving on to grand finals, something that's huge, but not what has everyone's attention. To decide who comes into grand finals from the loser's side is Luna versus Impala. This is widely regarded as the best set to have ever been played in Brawlhalla's history. Use, much like us, had to watch this entire set and then come to the realization that whoever wins this is who he has to face in grand finals. An absolutely terrifying realization to have.
There's the down air. What we call it. A lot of the movement economy. Luna trying to get as much damage as he can. But the long roller throws out the dare. Able to hit that side air. That side air. Real orange to red. Luna doing a fantastic job of bringing this one back. Oh! It's the dare. Fast fall there. Side air. Bouncing. Luna just trying to put some space out. There's the down line. There's the recovery.
Because Luna is coming from the loser's side of the bracket, he would have to win an initial best of 5 to reset the bracket and another one to win the tournament. With the momentum of taking down Impala, Luna is able to force his way through a very brutal 3-2 win set count for his first bracket reset. The momentum building from a bracket reset, taking down his current rival, and in the same day, a few hours prior, winning the 2v2 game mode for Dallas, you'd think Luna should be unstoppable, but I'd think he'd get tired. Both of these these players have had to climb numerous mountains to get to this point, but after that reset, it's fairly apparent that Use is the player in control. Luna landing with an attack clear missing Use is the ending of the first match, and the second match would also show a clear lead by Use all the way to the end where he narrowly dodges a weapon throw to finish the game. After holding nearly a whole stock lead in the entire third match, Use would end up landing an attack on Luna, tripping him into getting hit by a Sayer, and Use would win Dallas. This is as far as anyone would expect Use to go, not only for himself, but for South America. Dallas is insane?
Yeah, Dallas was insane. Like in this time, there's not like more excuse to say that South America is not in that top level. Like this was like
That was the moment.
like the
Use, now competing back at home in South America, can rest easy, knowing what he has done has never been accomplished by another player. Except one thing, the most ambitious of all things related to Brawlhalla, and that's winning the BCX title, the title that decides who is the best player in the world. Unfortunately, after returning back home from Dallas, Use fell off. Like, I mean, he was like All Might, couldn't even keep his superhero form anymore. He was being heavily outshadowed by Kaina, the best player in South America, who would go on to do impressive feats at the next Royale, kind of leaving Use in the dust. While Use would fail to even qualify for the next two upcoming Royales, Kaina would end up beating the best player in Europe 9-0. I mean, how is that even possible at that point? With Use continuously falling behind and Kaina and Lores taking strides for South America, as you look among the fan predictions with BCX on the way, Use's name is not predicted anywhere. With Use achieving as much as he did, I guess it's normal to assume that's all he'd ever really achieve. With BCX starting, Use was headed into yet another tournament where he was once again expected to be easy compared to the other players that were showing up. I mean, obviously, it's still Use. He wasn't expected to be easy by any margin. Brawlhalla fans can be dumb. I mean, I'm a pretty good example, but he was definitely not under the expectations as some of the other big players in BCX, specifically what I like to call the big three of that BCX. Kaina, Godly, and Sandstorm. PR #1 of North America and Europe were winning through their brackets with no problem, and Kaina would be doing the same. The first time we get to see Use at the BCX World stage is against Santi. Use is no longer opting to go with Lance, but instead chose to go with Greatsword. Greatsword is a weapon that everyone has a strong opinion on, but it rarely sees the light of day at the highest levels of competition for this time. It's very unique, containing lots of options, but its advantage state is the equivalent to driving a literal car. You can steer your opponent right where you want them to go, especially if you catch their dodge. What's also nice about it is the fact that it's a big ass sword. So compared to the regular moves that Sword would have, Greatsword has them all but bigger, and I honestly think better. Use is going to continue through his bracket as planned using Greatsword. It's not outlandish of a thought anymore for South America to be in contention for the world stage, but it still doesn't mean it's ever been done. Although, with that being said, it's becoming increasingly more obvious that our Final Four finally forming is about time for the big three in Use to meet up. The first of the big three that Use has to face is Sandstorm. This reminds me a lot of the Elite Four from Pokemon. That would have been a way better reference. Sandstorm versus Use is the first time I saw this. I don't know why I never thought about it. It's pretty simple now that I think of it, but Jaeyun's side signature when coming into contact with the ground will cause him to rupture the floor, and then he'll slice right through it. And it's super good at knocking people out. And if you do it underneath the stage like Use does, it goes off a lot sooner than expected. I think after landing something that's representative of Use's unique style, it really helps him get in the mode to start playing his best. Because after all, there still is two more of the big three remaining. And Use is going to have to be playing his absolute best if he wants any hopes of beating Kaina, who has been beating him consistently for a while now. Entering the top 8, Use would immediately have to face Kaina, who is expected, he's, destroying Use. And at this point, it's kind of disrespectful. I mean, how many times is Kaina gonna beat Use after Use paved the way for all of them? That's how I see it. In many ways, Kaina is kind of the opposite or antithesis of Use. He plays an extremely neutral-based game that has very little uses of signatures, and the characters he also likes to play are a bit more basic. They really are opposites of each other, which only makes it better to see who can win and who can figure out what it is they need to do to beat the other one using a completely different style. you see that? Maybe we shouldn't forget so fast what people have achieved in 1 year, okay? Obviously, that's gotta feel pretty nice conquering your bracket demon on the world stage, but what really matters is who's next. Godly. You know, if there was a villain in Brawlhalla, Godly would be the perfect one, because he has had so many opportunities to ruin these players' days. And to be honest with you guys, it just does not happen. Man is cursed. When facing South Americans, he always catches them when they have some crazy momentum. I mean, seriously, he has lost 3 grand finals in a row to South Americans and is now losing to Use in winners finals. I mean, he's like the Pokemon trainers you play the game alongside of, where you just beat them every single time you meet them in the new city. Kinda would beat Sandstorm and Godly in the losers bracket, putting them at 4th and 3rd, meaning that in the grand finals, there's 2 South American players. And if we can be sure of anything, when it comes to doing something that's never been done before in Brawlhalla, Use always rises to the occasion.
Oh, but the weapon toss goes through and Use capitalizes, gets a big Use, able to avoid the stomps from Kaina, and there it is.
Back neutralites again. Use is finding so much damage.
An opener bridge instead. He's going into the finishers. There's the dare. There's the recovery. Use with the weapon advantage. Downline into the recovery.
Hey, we see a stomp side air. Feels like it's been a long time since we've seen that, but Use instantly answers back.
And hit with the bridge, and there's the dare.
The South Americans are now your BCX champion, and it's thanks to Use for finally being the one to do it. I mean, it's about time me and the rest of North America let go of this title. We've been holding on to it for too long. But in all seriousness, this has been my version of the story of Use. Not only changing the world's perspective on himself, but for his region as a whole. To change the world's perspective on myself, it would really help if you subscribe and check out the other videos. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, bye. Bye. Bye.